Welcome back, it's Zion from Uke on Demand, where we go beyond strumming and bring you fingerstyle song lessons and tabs. So in this video, we're going to go over the traditional hymn, Praise God from whom all blessings flow. And we're going to go over the entire lesson for the easy version in this video, and you can get the tutorial for the harder version and all the tabs over at ukeondemand.com. So let's get started. So to begin, we're going to start out in a C chord position, which is open G, C, E, and ring finger on the 3rd fret of the A. And before we go on, this song bounces back between 3 beats per measure and 4 beats per measure. So right here, the first few measures, we're just going to stay with 3/4. So first, we're going to strum down. Leave the finger there, pick the A string. Come into a G chord, so that's going to be open G string, index finger on the 2nd fret of the C, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E, and middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A. Strum that once. Alright, now lift all your fingers off the fretboard except for the ring finger. Going to pick the open A string. And here's why we left that finger there. Now we can just go right into the note, 3rd fret E. And then the ring finger fall back into a C chord, strum down. Come into a G5. That's just going to be open G, index finger on 2nd fret C, middle 3rd fret E, and pinky on the 5th fret of A. I'm going to strum that once. Then we're going to come up here into a bar G chord shape, but it's actually going to be a C chord when it's at this fret. So all it is, you're going to be barring the 7th fret of string C, E, and A, and then middle finger on the 8th fret of E. Alright, and here's where variation number 1 kicks in. So right now, we were in a C chord, the whole measure is a C chord, so that technically means we could get away with doing this. So here's another C, and that's just simply the ring finger on the 7th fret of the A string. Alright, both are C chords. Personally, I found this one to sound a little bit nicer, but it's totally up to you. And if you find this one a little bit easier in the moment to kind of get to, then it's totally fine. So to put that bar we've learned together would sound like this. Alright, moving on. We're going to stay in this position, or if you're using the easy C chord, this position, but whichever one, I'm going to strum that down one more time. Which brings us into bar 2. Now we've gone, for that last measure, we were 4/4, but now we're going back into 3 beats per measure. So we're going to keep that position here and just pick that 7th fret. And then C chord again. This works the same thing as if you're doing this version. Alright, but those first 2 notes. Then you're going to come down to just bring that bar down to the 5th fret and pick the 5th fret of A. And then come down to 3rd fret A. Go ahead, slide that bar up to the 5th fret and bring it over the G string now, and add the pinky to the 8th fret of the A string. This is now an F chord. So strum down once. Go into your another C chord. So remember, both versions are acceptable. And then finally into another G5. So putting that measure together, would sound like this. Alright, now we got one more note in this measure. I'm going to go C chord, 5th fret of A, then into whichever C you're using, this version or this version, and then back down the 5th fret, 3rd fret, and now we're going into an F chord. So an F chord is open C string and A string, and then middle finger on the 2nd fret of G and index on the 1st fret of the E. Strum that once. And then from here, we're just going to leave the index finger where it is and just pivot into a G7. So now it's going to be open G, middle finger on 2nd fret C, index on the 1st fret of E, and then a ring finger on the 2nd fret of A. Strum once. And then slide up back into another regular C chord. So that measure together would sound like this. To finish it out, we're going to come into another C chord. Now I'll show you there's a second version to this one as well. But first is to make come down here and make that initial G5 position, but we're going to slide it all the way up so it starts at the 7th fret of the C string. Alright, so it'll be 7th fret C, 8th fret E, and 10th fret of the A. And it is now turned into a C chord. Alright, so we're going to strum that once. Alright, and as you've probably already guessed, you can simply remove your fingers and just strum that 10th fret of the A string with the other open strings. It is still a C chord. Alright, either one is fine. Moving into the last bar of the song. Then from here, we're going to pick the 7th fret of the A string. So if you're in this position, you can simply flatten your index finger so it covers the 7th fret. Or if you're in this position, you can just come down to the 7th fret with whichever finger you're using. And then pick the 8th fret of the A string. And then slide into another G5. 8th fret A, and then that C chord at the 7th fret of A, so both work. Then another G5, and then finally a C chord. So putting that measure together slowly would go like this. And that's how to play the easy version of Praise God From Whom All Blessings Flow on the ukulele. I hope you've enjoyed learning it so far. If you would like access to many more song lessons and tabs, check out ukeondemand.com and make sure to subscribe below so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming fingerstyle tutorials. We'll see you next time.